So, introductions. Hey everyone, New World News Network. Jamie here, Paul on the line. How's everyone doing? We are back in the saddle, I suppose would be the term. So, I don't know, we haven't done one of these in a while. Any news we should quickly recap first?
No.
Any
Not really.
I mean, for a while, I feel like we were back-to-back terrorist attacks over on your side of the world. Anything, has that appeared to have died down?
No, well, kind of. We had two giant explosions. One was in Leicester in a shop. Explosion's an understatement. Like, it fucked up a lot of houses. A few people died. And the people who own the shop are called Aram Kurd, Horka Hassan, and Arkan Ali, and they've been arrested on manslaughter. So, and a lot of people in Leicester, I can't confirm it, they're saying it was terror related, and the police are just saying, oh, it's just like an explosion. And then we had a fucking another one today in London. Loads of houses got blown up next to a
wow.
shop.
I feel like our media...
Why is it so unbelievable that they're not making bombs in their house, and that's what blew it up?
I feel like our media in the States, since Trump got elected, like, they don't feel like talking about anything else besides Trump. And, world news is sort of secondary to gossip and everything else.
We should really talk about Florida, because that's quite close to home to you, isn't it?
I mean, it's, I'm up north and they're the very southern area, but I do know a lot of people down there and I have family down there and stuff. My take on it is, and I don't know if it's just because I have so much respect for Steve Pieczenik, but I'm with Pieczenik on this one, that it looks like it's Sandy Hook Part 2. The script is there.
It's taken me a bit longer to come to that conclusion, but yeah, it does.
Well, here's the thing, though.
Dropped the ball 36 times.
Well, let me put it like this. I think it probably differs from Sandy Hook in, I think people actually probably got shot at this one, but I think it was like, what they do is, I feel like, because, the FBI had tons of warnings about this kid, right? I think what they did, instead of ignoring the warnings, which is what we're told, is I think they played...
I think someone else shot it and they...
Yeah, exactly. I think what they do is they have these instances where they can have a patsy, kind of like that Batman theater shooting, where you had tons of reports that, when the guy came out the back of the theater, he wasn't in tactical gear or anything like that, but all the eyewitnesses said tactical gear, full gas mask, like a wet works team, like Black Ops. And that's what it's sounding like with the Florida thing. You've had teachers and everyone else come out and say they were in full tactical gear. You had a girl say, I was talking to him while shooting was going on. I think they brought in a wet works team to fuck shit up and then just blamed it on this kid.
I think this kid's in on it as well. He looks too calm and cool and calculated around the cops, and the cops seem pretty cool with him. Like, I think it would be difficult if I ran the Florida Police Department to find police that can escort him to A to B without killing him.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, it's going to be... I'm going to have to really pick my officers. Like, I've got a responsibility to keep this kid alive, even though he's done this. I think that'd be difficult to find cops that don't spit in his face, beat the shit out of him. Like, camera not care.
Yeah. I agree with that, too.
It's kind of, like, understanding between them.
Well, I mean, even think of it like this.
You'd be scared. Even if you did scoop the shoe up and it was you and you got busted, would you not still have this fear about you? Like, oh shit, I'm in jail.
Well, well, not even the cops. I mean, I'm just going off of what you hear on Law and Order, but I imagine it to be true. I could ask my neighbor if I wanted. He's a cop. But there's always the sort of saying, people who molest and kill kids in prison, they'll get it bad from the other prisoners. So unless if they have this guy in a completely isolated area and everything like that, you should expect him showing up to court with black eyes on behalf of other prisoners beating the shit out of him, not just other cops.
To keep him safe.
Yes, that's the point. And, the other thing about this Florida shooting thing that is really off-putting is this one kid who's become the face of the anti-gun thing. His mom works at CNN. His dad's former FBI. You know, and him just making incoherent statements on TV, thinking that
He's been on CNN a ton of times before.
And they even asked him, are you getting ready to go back to school? And he's like, well, you know, if the interviews stop and, you know, this and that. And it's like, oh, so interviews take priority over school now and stuff? Like, all right, we know what game you're playing. Like,
the way he spoke to Alex Jones was ridiculous, was to call him a cunt and all this stuff. Alex Jones politely invites him on.
Yeah.
And then he goes, no, I'm not going to come on.
Yeah, I know, and I had called that too, because I didn't see him respond and say he wasn't going to come on, but I said, you know, this kid challenged Jones to a debate. Jones said, I'm here anytime, you know, call up, show up, whatever, we're here.
He was even nicer than that. He sent him a Twitter saying, PM me on this, and I'll get the producer to book you on whenever you want. And then he came back saying, no, fuck you, I'm not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
Just whatever. Like,
I knew that. I knew that was going to happen. And the funniest thing I think is the snake oil salesman remark, because even BuzzFeed sent out his products and they were like, you know, these are the same products you can buy. There's some markup, but you know, they are the best in the market. He just private labels and
guys, the Alex Jones stuff, it helped me a lot. Like, I know it sounds like snake skin. I thought that I tried it. It's incredible.
I'll tell you what. Since I've been working these overnights and stuff, I've been living off Brain Force, and I can only take one. The recommended dose is 2. That's too many for me. I only need 1, and I'm
the Tiny
good.
Tangerine was giant for me. Giant Tiny Tangerine.
Yeah, and you know what else I just got? Even I got this. It was 50% off the pollen block. I'm waiting to try that once pollen season starts, and the toothpaste I just got a thing of, because it's Tom's of Maine, the fluoride-free toothpaste, which I used to buy at the supermarket and stuff. But his one has the colloidal silver built into it. It has iodine in it and a whole bunch of other stuff. It's only $2 more. I got it on sale. That's one of the few things I have set up for auto ship is the toothpaste and stuff. And I think it tastes great. So, I mean,
Super Mal's Fatality is really good if you're doing hardcore, like, you need to be doing hardcore training on it. And if you're single, you're going to end up with a rape charge. Seriously. You need to be working out seriously hard on Super Mal Vitality, or you're going to have a girlfriend, or you're going to get arrested.
Yeah.
Like, it's powerful.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're digressing. The main thing for me that got me thinking about, I wasn't really saying false flag with the shooting. I was like, oh, kids are mentally ill these days. But how do you have 4 cops standing down?
Yeah. And a drill. Don't forget that, a drill going on at the same time. I mean, that's again where it's all sorts of shady. And I've had to explain that to people where I said, you know, you need to realize that part of the way they're able to get away with this is compartmentalization and having all these multiple narratives going where it just creates confusion. And the other thing is, you know, my boss at the restaurant, you know, me and her were talking about it, and she had a friend who posted a thing where he was like, these are my ideas for solutions. Now, one of his ideas for a solution was having the creators of violent video games. Now, I'll say this. You don't see gamers going out and shooting shit up. But the media does contribute to a sort of devaluation, dehumanization of human life, where it's not so much that people are playing video games or seeing violent movies and then going out and shooting shit, but they'll pull out their cell phone and videotape some shit before they go and get help. That's a problem that I think has arisen from this sort of dehumanization through the media and stuff. And I think, you know, essentially it would be like a sin tax, where if we're going to have excessively violent video games, excessively violent and gory movies, part of their revenue should go towards essentially funding the opposite, whether it be funding security guards in schools, funding, you know, gun training courses or something like that. They should do something to sort of balance the scales, because with me personally, I stopped watching Quentin Tarantino movies because I started to think of it like, if I pay attention to all this stuff, the nutritional value of what I take in my diet food-wise, why should I not be just as conscious as what I'm taking in through my eyes and my ears, through media, whether it be not listening to gangster rap music, not watching excessively gory movies. Like, maybe I've just outgrown it and stuff, but...
On Facebook, like, how many murders have you seen on your Facebook page?
I mean, at this rate, you see them, you know, with that
One
kid...
a day?
Yeah, probably. Whether it be...
I don't think humans are meant to see murders, and when you're seeing them daily on your Twitter page or your Facebook videos, like, I know if I die, the chance are it's going to be on YouTube now. If you die, I'm going to have to watch my mate getting fucking savaged on YouTube. You're not going to be able to avoid it. But I think it's got to cause post-traumatic stress disorder to me.
Yeah.
And probably not even realise it. I don't think people realise the damage it does when you watch people being murdered.
Yeah.
I think once you start getting used to it, like, you read comments now on the videos, like, people watch it for entertainment now. It's like, oh, funny.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying I don't think it necessarily leads people to become killers, but it leads to this, you know, let me videotape this car accident rather than call 911 attitude, like, where people are more concerned with getting it on YouTube or Facebook than what they can do to help. So I think a syntax on some of the excessively violent media products would be a good idea and a start, but I don't think there's an easy solution. Now, the one thing I think, you know, the whole mass murder pills narrative and stuff, that's a tricky one, because these things do have side effects, and these kids could be suffering from the side effects, but the harsh reality is, if it was just chalked up to the medications, you would have a mass shooting on every corner of every street in America, because that's how many people are on these drugs. And it's not you can't just wrap it up nicely with that bow. Now, the one thing I didn't realize,
I mean, if you want to cover it up, you want someone that's on the drugs. Alex Jones goes, it's the psychotropics, because that's better than blaming the FBI doing it themselves, right?
yeah, and it keeps him out of headlines and everything like that. The one thing I was going to say, though, that they have been touching on is, out of all of the big mass shooters, only one of them had a father at home. Again, these kids, there is that question of fatherlessness. And Milo said, you know, what I think this is a repression of masculinity, a repression of it until it reaches a boiling point and then just explodes into sort of hyper-violence rather than...
Where you've got identity politics, it's got to do this quickly, this is quite complicated. Where you've got identity politics... And what they're doing is you've got to give black people a chance, you've got to give Hispanic kids a chance. So if they start doing crimes, the police are supposed to go really easy with them so they don't get a criminal record before they go to...
Yeah.
And that could be why he got 36 raps.
Well, that happens all the time in the school district I'm in, where it's this mentality: there are no bad kids, there's just bad actions. So no,
they're bad white kids,
and everyone's a victim of like
no.
Where it's
bad white kids get the full force of the law, but if you're black or Hispanic, because of diversity, you got to give them more of a chance.
Well, and what it is they'll say, you know, oh well, we can't throw the book at him because he's a victim of systemic whatever. You know, how would you expect him to respond? He's underprivileged or whatever. Yeah, I mean, you had it where the local school district I'm in, my nieces and nephews just had 3 days off from school because of a shooting threat, where someone posted a list on social media: I'm going for these 10 kids, here's a picture of some guns, FBI was involved and all this stuff. And let me tell you something about Poughkeepsie. If 10 kids were going to get shot, they would be shot in the fucking blackest of night. There wouldn't be a warning. I mean, the whole idea that there was a warning put out shows that it was all bullshit. And now the kids know what to say to get school canceled, and it's just turned into a game to them, where because these kids don't understand consequence. They don't think they have a future anyway, let alone think education has any part in their future. So why they're the stereotype from the hood. It's what does it matter to them? They think they're just going to end up locked up anyway at some point. So,
well, look, you come from America. I'm in London. We've not spoken about this case before we met, and we've both got exactly the same opinion.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're right. I just think it's bizarre that we've not consulted and yet we've got nearly the same conclusion. But mine is, I'm going to try not give a spoiler alert to the last chapter of this episode. But how can I'm going to sound like such a sicko. Let's say I wanted to get rid of America's guns, right? I'm George Soros and I really want to get rid of your guns. Best way I can do it is get the FBI. Right? If there were 10 school shootings in the next 10 days and there are 100 dead kids, they still won't pass any gun laws. They won't. And the reason they won't do it is because of how indoctrinated the American Constitution is and how important it is to the older generation. But if you keep shooting up these schools and these kids get hit with the propaganda and they keep seeing on TV how evil these guns are, they're going to be the ones who will pass through this bill.
Yep. And the other thing is, and this is why...
The kids, you are never going to change the opinion. I think the FBI have learned at Sandy Hook, it doesn't matter how many people they shoot up, Americans are going to keep their guns.
Yeah,
but kids,
I think you're right.
Might be more...
I think you're right. Their propaganda efforts are focused at the children more so than the older generations, and this is why
bullets in them. Why not?
This is why I'm really glad though. Steven Crowder has sort of taken the stance where he asks people like, "Do you think you have a right to free speech?" And the other problem is this idea that in the Constitution, the rights aren't granted to us from government. Our rights are granted to us from God. Now, which God that is and all that, that's whatever. That's a secondary, point. But it's the idea that your right to self-preservation and self-defense is inalienable. And that's why it's woven into the Constitution the way it is, where it's like, this isn't even supposed to be something that government is supposed to think they have a say in. It's supposed to be...
It makes sense. You're not seeing many heaven forbid, any shopping mall shootings. We did get one cinema shooting, but why are they always hitting schools all the time? It must be because they want to brainwash these fucking kids.
Well, I was going to say, you have military documents saying... I forget which one it is, whether it's Northwoods or which one, but it's one where, again, they put all these documents out saying it's for use in the Middle East or anything like that, but they say hit soft targets, malls, schools, things like that, and blame it on your opposition. I mean, you had, what's his name? David, or something... You had the one military guy on Alex Jones the week before the shooting, and he said, what I'm worried about is a false flag, a shooting that will be used to blame all conservatives. And sure enough, the next week, what did we have? We had this shooting where now they're blaming... If you're in the NRA, you're responsible. Anyone who says anything about these Parkland kids being used as political pawns, they're bullying. But you can tell Dana Laoche that she needs to be burned at the stake like a witch, and that's fine and dandy. And she had a really great speech where, like she said, the media loves... these school shootings. They love crying moms and town halls and everything like that, and that's all fine for their wishes to get a Pulitzer Prize, but you could have 100 people shot in one weekend in Chicago and CNN won't even mention it because they're black kids and they're not middle-class white kids.
Well, I kind of agree with this, and I don't know if I should agree with it because I'm pretty convinced it was an inside job. But for sure, the only solution is going to be armed teachers now. I can't see America moving away from the idea of arming pretty much every.
And even that, we had it in my school district where you had a teacher attack another teacher with a screwdriver. I don't even think that's necessarily the greatest ideas because some of these teachers aren't playing with a full deck upstairs either.
Yeah, could you full deck have left?
Yeah, because they've all been pushed out by the Marxists and everything like that.
But then again, this is again hitting the kids because they're going to get used to a police state in school, and as much as I hate that idea, I can't really see.
That was my concern, where I said, you've had people for years saying that the schools are modeled after prisons and the idea of the school to prison pipeline and everything like that, and now we're basically asking for it. Did you see actually there was a passage from Behold the Pale Horse that it was circling around after this whole thing where what's his name? Who wrote Pale Horse? Bill Hicks, right? Bill Hicks had said that you'll see people on whoever wrote it, though, you'll see it says in the passage that he wrote in the 90s, you'll see school shootings by people on drugs and this and that, and the FBI will spin it so that middle America will be begging to have their guns taken away. And it's so funny because...
William Cooper.
William Cooper, yeah. I work with this girl who goes to a liberal arts college and everything. Her parents are doctors, so she knows that there's biological differences between gender and everything, but she's still hit with all this intersectional, feminist nonsense and everything. And I was having a conversation with her and a customer, and I basically tried to break it down to her. I said, you don't realize that you are the bourgeoisie trying to tell everyone else how they can speak, how they can act, and everything. You think you're rebelling against something when you're actually the upper class, the academic, the one who's been indoctrinated in this, trying to tell the rest of the world how they can act. Your intersectionalism only works. She's from California and then goes to school in New York, and that's the only two places in America that you can even apply any of this academic theory and have it look semi-coherent, because once you get into the Midwest, there's not enough of a structure for there to be a power structure. I mean, do you really think the farmer who deals with his distributor, the nearest post office is probably 10 miles away? Is there a power structure for them to enact their privilege on? No.
Hey man, everything's been fixed, don't worry, this is in the news. Your problems are solved. Fergie, you know Fergie?
The singer or the
fixed it all. Relax. Fergie's fixed it all. Oh, thank God. She's been talking to Will.i.am, and she's come up with this. More than thousands of people, especially kids, died by Trump's Second Amendment. Remember, it's Trump's Second Amendment.
Yeah.
It's like, then terrorist bloody attacks. I'm reading this. This Fergie doesn't understand. It's not me being shit at English. I'm reading what she said. Like, she can't speak English. So let me start again. More than thousands of people, especially kids, died by Trump's Second Amendment and terrorist bloody attacks in the whole US. Wake up, America. It's time to impeach him.
I'll tell you.
Not only is it not coherent and it didn't make sense.
You know what? I mean...
Did you not watch her Super Bowl national
anthem? Oh, yeah. I mean,
I think you should go back to kneeling.
I hate to sound like
that was more offensive than the kneeling. Go back to kneeling, guys.
Yeah, right. I'll tell you, that was my first concern, where I was like, I really hope that they don't jump behind this and be like, it's great. It was an act of rebellion against America. Like, I thought that was going to be the new kneeling, was to just do an awful version of the national anthem.
Yeah, remind me of Obama's painting. That was I keep forgetting how much I wanted to cover this. Let me tell you how amazing it is to see, if you Google that artist, right? You Google that artist and all you see is how this guy is so amazing. He hides sperm in all of his paintings. There's sperm everywhere, and it doesn't hide it. It's pretty visible.
Well, and that's the thing. Yeah, it's just sperm everywhere, and all of the headlines are about how great that is.
He just jerks off on it, and it's completely
the sperm's painted in the backgrounds of everything, and sperm everywhere, all over everything, and the media going on about how great it is. And then he does a portrait of Obama, and they try to say there's no sperm anywhere, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you could Google that guy's name and just see headline where it's like, artist paints sperm in masterpiece. There's no sperm in Obama's painting. Artist paints sperm masterpiece. No sperm in Obama, conspiracy theory. Like, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, you guys must really think everyone is so dumb.
Just let the spirit cooking a fucking rest.
Right? Yeah. I couldn't believe it.
The national portrait. No fucking Mario Abramovich, whatever it is.
I couldn't believe my eyes when I Googled that shit, and I'm just back-to-back articles seeing them praising this guy painting sperms on everything, and then trying to deny it, and then praising it and denying it. Yeah.
That's the least of your fucking problems, because when I look at it, I mean, yes, I'm a racist, but because I know if the other paintings is done, I look at Obama in my head as him holding a white guy's beheaded head.
Well, that was the one who painted Michelle's. The person who painted Michelle's portrait is the one that does all the beheading ones.
But you can see how that puts in your head. I think it is psychology, because now how can you not know that he did those paintings, then look at the paintings and be reminded of white women being beheaded by black goddesses?
Well, that's the one that did Michelle's painting. And I'll tell you what, though, both of those paintings are garbage, just on an artistic level.
No, it's my most favorite thing. I love shitty fucking portraits and statues. I think they're brilliant, but not for the National fucking Gallery.
I mean, Obama's sitting in a plant, like his whole body proportions are off, and it's like.
Well, look, if you do fuck all for 8 years and just sit down and do nothing,
I guess. I guess, like, yeah, his portrait is pretty symbolic of his presidency. He's sitting in a bush, like that was like his go-to for every. Oh, the economy sucks, Bush. We're still in wars, Bush. You know, this isn't that Bush. Like he was stuck in a bush his whole fucking presidency.
The thing is, it's just a big fuck you to America. You're going to go through all the president's portraits from Abraham Lincoln to John Kennedy. Even Bill Clinton and Bush have got decent ones. And then Obama's got to be fucking different.
Yeah.
It's got to stand out, hasn't it? It's not good enough that it's black and stands out. No, it's got to be a big fuck you to America, hasn't it? But to me, it's just a big fuck you.
No, it is. It is. And it's sort of like, you know, it's so funny because people always talk about how little class Trump has, and it's like you don't realize that people don't realize how classless Obama was in a lot of ways. Where like you know even
fucking got their White House
even
exercised. Every single room's been exercised.
I know. That was the greatest headline I ever saw. But even my friend Dave said this, where he said, you know, you had Trump, who was a reality TV star for multiple seasons and actually was a celebrity. And he says, but he still isn't as much of a celebrity president as Obama was. Because Obama would do these, like, you know, be on SNL and do little news clips and, you know, packages with George Clooney. And he was always out in Hollywood fundraising. Like, the propaganda really got turned up under Obama. And a lot of it was done very slyly, so people didn't realize that's what they were watching. But even when he was leaving the office, they did like a little video where it's like, what are you going to do now? And it shows him and Biden sitting in the president's theater eating popcorn and all this other stuff. And like Obama was a super celebrity president, more so than.
He's got 6 fingers in the painting.
Does he?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Well, no, yeah, because you think, did you see Gavin McInnes? He was on Alex Jones. And Owen goes, oh, look, Obama's got 6 fingers. And Gavin goes, for fuck's sake, keep that quiet. And he was like, why? It's going, because he didn't even paint it. He photoshopped it, sent it to a Chinese factory. That Chinese guy's fucked it up. He's going to get shot in the back of the head. I didn't want to mention the 6th finger because some poor he didn't even paint it. Some poor Chinese slave did it, and now you pointed it out to all your audience. It's got 6 fingers. He's probably going to get choppy for fucking up the most important painting.
Wow.
But yeah, he didn't even paint it.
That's crazy.
Do you not know he didn't paint it?
I'm not surprised. No, I didn't know that.
No, he just did it on Photoshop and then sent it to a Chinese slave camp to do.
Wow.
Which again is another big fuck you to America.
Yeah.
Why has Obama got 6 fingers? Have a look. I'm not. He's got 6 fingers, ladies and gentlemen.
That's ridiculous. And even Michelle's picture looks all sorts of weird, and I don't know. I can't believe either of those were allowed. They should have got turned away. It should have just been like, try again.
And I like the way the Daily Mail handle it. Obama's official portrait appears to have a 6th finger. What do you mean it appears? No, it's fucking...
That's the postmodernism. Is it really 6?
Fuck
is 6
you.
really 6,
Fuck
Paul?
you.
Listen, Paul, if you think 6 is actually 6, you're a racist. 6 means 5, and 5 means 6. That's the world we're living in.
I'm actually terrified. Like, I'm laughing at it, but I've had nightmares about this because this is really like we have taken over. Fuck you. What are you going to do about it? We're going to show you paintings of us beheading people in front of you, like white people in front of you. We're going to cover it in sperm, and we're going to stand
It's like a continuation. Did you ever hear about the Clinton White House when they were decorating it for Christmas?
I think what they put like loads of satanic stuff on the Christmas tree.
No, it was crack pipes and condoms and heroin needles and all of that. Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, it's an art project to bring awareness to, you know, what." Like they gave it some excuse, but it's like you have a crack pipe on the.
No. They sent Bill Clinton out to go pick up the Christmas decorations.
Yeah.
I was just full of that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's more what it was. Like, they were probably like, it was probably all their crack pipes and everything else. I mean, Clinton, I doubt he uses condoms anyway. He probably just got a vasectomy and rapes everything that moves. Like, yeah, it's so classless that it's like, and you guys want to talk about Trump eating steak and everything like that, Like, I remember someone talking, it might have even been Gavin McInnes, where he was talking about how, again, all these people don't realize, they get so concerned with class warfare, and they don't realize that they're the ones perpetuating it, where it's like, yeah, Trump eats fast food, so does the rest of America, but it's everyone who expects, oh, well, the president should only be eating organic green smoothies that taste like sludge, and, everything like that. God forbid the president eat ice cream, like... They don't realize that they're the ones enacting the class warfare by having this elitist, attitude towards everyone and everything. Like, it's so funny to me where it's like, I work in a health food restaurant, and like, there's some people where it's like, there's one woman that comes in, and I am telling you, she eats soy everything. She will have a block of tofu, a soy smoothie, and put soy sauce on it. And if you try to have a conversation with this woman, it takes forever because her brain just isn't running up to par. And it's like, you think what you're doing is healthy, and you're making yourself retarded by malnourishment and eating things that are just hormone laden and everything, where it's like, some of these people think they're doing something for their health, and you can just see that it's like the lights are on, but no one's home because there's just not enough energy for their body to get up to full processing power.
I'm sure that's why I smoke so much weed. It's just to dumb my brain down. Like, I'm thinking about joining. I think it does have an effect when everyone's dumb. You just think, maybe I'm better off just dumbing myself down.
Yeah. That's why I would smoke half the time, because I would be around people who are just very glum and kind of and I would need to bring myself down to their level.
Yeah, I just end up ignoring them if I'm staying, being in my own little world. But then if I talk to them, I know I'm going to upset them.
Yeah, that's how I feel. I would essentially feel like I needed to slow myself down to socialize with some of these people, where it's like, weed on some level is a depressant, and it's like I would have to depress myself in order to tolerate being around depressing people, because other than that, what's the point of it? Like, I'm too ambitious. I don't want to be sitting around doing nothing, hearing someone complain about things that shouldn't even bother them. Like, it's ridiculous, but I would need to get on their level, and like, yeah, you got to dumb yourself down to deal with dumb people. Huh?
Have a car accident or something.
That's how I feel about some of these people. Have some goddamn real problems you got to deal with.
I know I was talking about Chris earlier. When I was thinking about it, I think, I'm not being big-headed, I think me and my friends were smarter than him when we were about 10. We'd got past, and it's just so sad. Like 10 years old. Like, I think a lot of people I know who are adults basically got the intellect of a 10-year-old.
Yeah. Well, you know what the other thing about that too is, we were
quite smart when we were 10. We weren't like,
Well, think about all the times, after these school shootings and stuff, again, where you have, like, I remember Obama came out at one point, and he was basically like, well, folks, I got a finger painting from a survivor of Sandy Hook, and it shows a gun with a big red, circle and a slash through it, and little Timmy in Sandy Hook wants to know why we still need our guns, and it's like, why are we
against doing a budget as well?
Why are we getting policy advice from children? Yeah. But now think about what you're saying though, where it's like, obviously this has an appeal to someone, and it's adults that have the intellect of children. Like, they're operating on the same level. I knew it was bad. Remember the show SpongeBob SquarePants? I knew there was a problem when that shit came on and I was a teenager, and I had teenage friends who would watch it, and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, why? What is the appeal here? It's stupid. Like, there's nothing to this. Like,
I've been noticing that, like, my friends have got these Netflix accounts. I've got nothing against Netflix, but the stuff they're watching, like, it's not, like, I cannot figure this out. Like, it's watching this one thing, which is about these black people that own this satanic nightclub, and they do all this music stuff. And it's, like, 8 episodes, 4 seasons. And it's, like, you could get away with 2 episodes, and it's boring as fuck. And they watch it all the way through.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they go into El Chapo document, like, series, and it's like literally 10, 12 episodes, and then 3 or 4 seasons. And then it's like this Batman when he was a kid, and it's like 8 episodes, 4 seasons. It's like, guys, like, this isn't even good entertainment anymore. If they're just knocking, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, how are they're just supposed to be making up as they go along?
Yeah.
Why can't they just tell one good story and, like, get it into 3 hours?
Yeah. I've always been that same way. Where
I've got to sit here for 9 episodes, for 4 episodes, and it's not even that good. Like, I think the first 2 episodes are usually quite cool, and it's like, fucking, how did you get approved for this? Like,
I mean,
the producers go, nah, you did this in the last episode.
well,
no.
even I have clips together because I was going to do a video on it. The only things I use the term watch very loosely because generally I just have stuff on the TV to drown out the noise of my household. But I watch, like, a lot of the superhero shows, and I will say though, Gotham is the only one, the one about Batman when he's younger and everything, where they kind of threw out, you know, they're doing their own take on it, and it's more of a cop show than a comic show. But for the one show that's not really following the comic books, that's the best out of all of them because social justice messaging has infiltrated The Flash, Supergirl,
It got into El Chapo. I had to explain it to my friend because what it was basically doing was the Mexicans were being sympathized on massively. It's like they're the victims. The gangsters were actually the victims. They had to do it because they were poor. And, you know, if they could just... And it's like, oh, it's really hard. The risk they take to cross the border and all that stuff. I was like, dude, the reason they're doing it is because there is no fucking border.
Well, and, you know,
days to cross the border, got to watch out for the police. Like, no, they just drive in and they get waved in.
I love
getting the guns from Obama, and the reason Obama's giving them the guns to shoot shit up is because the Mexican government can't deal with it, the police can't deal with it, so that means American contractors get the contractors to go after the guns that they put in there in the first place.
The thing I always thought is hysterical about the idea that people are forced into drug dealing is like, oh, yes, someone's twisting your arm and forcing you into this, you know, market with such high profit margins. Like, oh, you poor thing. Like, I mean, I have friends that are coke dealers, and all the time they'll be like, I need new equipment, I need a new computer, I need this, and that, and it's like they're doing more than they're selling, and that's why they can't afford what they need to afford. But it's like, if you weren't doing that, you'd have tons of money. Like, I've been a drug dealer before. Like, no one forces you into a market with such high profit margins. Like, I'm sorry. It's such a ridiculous idea to even put that forward.
The way that Mexicans got such sympathy, even though they're the biggest criminals in the world. And I was explaining to Chris and the other black dude, like, if anything, this film should be like a warning to put a wall up right away. Cause this is
That's so great.
These guys are fucking crazy. And where are they getting all this military equipment from?
Yeah. Well, and you know what's funny? When the Parkland shooting happened, the first thing I said was, I was like, you know, we could take all the guns and then we'll end up like Mexico, where you have someone running up in a school with a machete and just hacking at people. And I said, personally, I'd rather get shot with a bullet than hacked with a machete. I think the injuries would be a lot easier to deal with. Bullet hole, even if it went straight through.
No, I've read in the studies on that. It's much better to be shot than to be stabbed.
Yeah, it is. And that's the thing. Where Mexico, you know, people are using machetes and going after each other. I don't want that going on. Evil will find a way.
Apparently, as long as you don't get shot in the stomach or the head, it's not actually too. It's not. I'm not saying it's good. It's not too bad. Like if you get hit in the stomach, you're really bad.
Yeah.
Like in the war, my granddad was telling me if any of his mates got shot in the stomach, it was a rule between them, you'd shoot them in the head.
Yeah. Well, I imagine your stomach acid and all of that stuff will just create even more
So they had
issues.
a rule: if your mate gets shot in the stomach and they scream, just shoot them in the head. Like, it's that bad if you get hit in the stomach. It's just you don't. They saw it all the time. They were just like, do not. If it happens to me.
Well, and that's the other thing.
It's a sick story, isn't it? You have to shoot your mates in the head.
That's the other thing I always question about these school shootings, where it's like, 17 dead, like, and they're never. It always seems to be a high number dead, but not as many wounded. And I think you would always expect.
The number goes up.
You would always expect more wounded than shot fatally. Like, I mean, the Vegas shooting was like that.
I've never seen a believable victim in the hospitals either. Like, they don't have a drip connected, or they say you can't see any injuries and they've got their legs covered. So I know basic medical that if you got shot in the leg, you can't really have a duvet.
Yeah.
Over your leg. Your leg's got to be out the duvet. So I can't see. Obviously, I can't see the lower body because there's no duvet. But my girlfriend's next was a doctor. She would agree that means you've got no leg injuries. And the top half, I can't even see a scratch.
Yeah.
And why are they in hospital? Because there's meant to be a shortage of hospital beds. I don't mean to be harsh, but if you have been in a school shooting, and I can't see any injuries, and you're not even attached to the fucking drip, maybe you should be at home recovering.
Well, did I ever tell you about how my friend's father came to the conclusion Sandy Hook was fake? He on his own, being a little old-ass detective, I mean, something was off about it to him, and he doesn't listen to conspiracy theories or anything like that, probably just watches Fox News, old Republican guy. What he did was he knew that in America, there's only 4 coffin manufacturers. And now, kids don't die often. So if you have 12 kids in one area all dying, you're going to have to get a large order of child-sized coffins to Connecticut. So he called up, and I don't know what he said, if he acted like he needed them for something, or, if he was just inquiring. But he basically found out that there were no shipments of kids' coffins going towards Newtown, Connecticut and stuff. And that was his way of arriving at the conclusion that it was false, because...
What do you think about the chance? I mean, I'm just going to throw this out there, because, we've got a gun. I want to talk to you about... I learned some stuff about guns in the UK that I was shocked about. But the reason guns are banned in the UK, primarily, I say that they're not, but the reason people got the impression people don't have guns in the UK was because of that school shooting, which I should remember what it was called, Dunblane. Now, if you look into it, I'm not going to do a show on it, but it looks like there's a lot of kiddie fucking going on in that school with elites. So do you think there's a chance that maybe it was being used as a kiddie fucking, and they probably did kill some kids and then knocked it down, so they didn't work out what was underneath that school?
Did they knock down the school?
Sandy Hook.
Oh, well, yeah, Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook, you listen to, what's his name? Wolfgang, yeah. He says the school had been shut down. It didn't have internet access. You can check that on the Wayback Machine and everything. Federal standards require attendance be done online, and they hadn't had internet access for years. So I think that school was...
To check Melissa Melton. Like, that town was like an MK Ultra town. They did do lots of weird experiments in that town before.
I was telling my friend about that, where I said, they have towns in Russia where it looks like you've just stepped into middle America, and they would use them to train undercover Russian spies and stuff. And we do that here. We'll build a town, and it's just used for training, and it'll look like it's China or something like that. And it could just be one of these pop-up CIA towns that... they use for training, and they might use it as a set for a false flag or something like that.
I need a tinfoil hat, but I wouldn't be surprised they did kill real kids, and the reason they killed them was because they'd been fucked by elites.
Yeah, I could see that as plausible. But I think with the Sandy Hook kids, I think they brought those same kids out at the Super Bowl and had them singing with Jennifer Hudson, because the trick that they do is they just show you pictures of them when they were younger as if they are current, and then when they show you the older version of them somewhere else, you don't ever put 2 and 2 together.
You could convince people to do it. Just go, well, it's for, because once they're in that mindset, well, it's for the country. It's, you know, it's for, to get this message out. The message is more important. You get, it's part of the mainstream media, and then we're going to pay you like £1 million, and then you're out the country. Like, get the fuck out of here. And then you end up in the Caribbean.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, think about it. Like, I'm sure you even have, like, liberal parents who are, if you go to them and you're like, listen, we're going to do this, we're going to use it to push this agenda, this, and that, the ends justify the means.
They take their kid to child acting. It's like, well, your kid's shit acting, but we've got this $1 million contract you could do. Just need a couple of portraits of your kid.
Yeah. Couple old pictures of them from 3 or 4 years ago, and I mean, because that's the other thing, you know, kids when they're at those young ages and they age and grow quickly, a kid can look very different from 10 to 6.
I can guarantee, even now or all throughout my life, if I had been shot at school or murdered at school, my parents wouldn't let the media touch any photos of me. They wouldn't let them. Speak to the media. They would just have they would be their own personal thing they'd do, and they wouldn't speak to anybody.
And that's the other thing that bothered me. And I mean, my boss made a point where she said, you know, all big legal changes and everything come as a reaction to stuff. But I had said after the Parkland thing, I said, I really wish there was some sort of time period where we go between from victim to activist, because it seems like the day after the shooting, all of these people are now campaigning for political action rather than grieving. None of them. And it's funny, I have a friend who's in acting. Like, he is an actor, singer, does theater and play production stuff and casting calls and all of that. And I was showing him this mock video this guy did as like your crisis actors suck, hire me, I'm a better actor, blah. Like, it was a joke about it. But he's showing some of the clips of like the bad crisis acting, and my friend is watching it being like, oh my God, like, I never realized or looked at any of this with that sort of, you know, outlook, that they're bad actors. You're like, well, it became like undeniable to him, where he was like, they're not acting like grieving victims, they're acting like really bad actors. Like, and that's the thing, where the acting is almost so bad that people think it must be real.
Just say my parents got killed in a terror attack going on holiday. I mean, the only way they'd get me on TV is I'd foul revenge on the people that did it, and they wouldn't be able to broadcast what I say.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to come find you, I'm going to kill you all, every goddamn.
But no, you're right. I feel like most parents, if they just lost their child, they would be declining interviews. They would say, I'm not talking to anyone about this.
They wouldn't. If you had a kid, you wouldn't want to see the photos and see
on the news, and no, it would be too painful. And like I said,
and they're my photos. They're not photos that belong to CNN. They're my memories, and I'm not giving them to you. So you can go, even if I agree with your agenda. So yeah, the whole thing's bizarro land.
Yeah, it really is. And like I said, there's a million points that are just problematic. Like this idea that, I mean, I've seen things where they're saying we should lower the voting age to 16. And like you said, that's what they're pushing this message at the children. They're trying to empower these kids that they'll be the ones to finally solve.
Yeah, but why can't kids drive at that age? Why can't they have sex? Why can't they get married? Why can't they buy alcohol? Why can't they?
Because their brains aren't developed.
Yeah. So why are they that? Why? God help us.
And what's scarier is there's large swaths of adults who agree with all of this because their brains are developed but been attacked, basically.
Yeah, there's some bullshit going on. I don't know how I found this out, but in the UK, guess what I have to do to get a shotgun or that kind of gun?
What?
You just write to the police and say I want a shotgun license. And they have to give it to you, and yes, they've got a good reason not to. So we do have gun rights here, and they're still going. It's just they're not. You're being lied to. I didn't realise it was that easy. I thought you had to do checks. It's like, no, you've got a right to have it. The police have to give like a really good reason why you specifically cannot have a shotgun.
Well, and you want to know one of the other things is, you know, as far as like, you know, like I had said with this whole thing in Parkland, even if we were to go with the official story and everything and just run off that, then the problem is government negligence on every aspect. Like, we have these registries, but I guarantee they aren't updated. I mean, I have a friend, you're not supposed to be able to join the military if you've had a suicide attempt, and I have a friend who had a suicide attempt who is in the service. Now, granted, he's way far past that, and I think he's doing good in the service, and it's doing good for him, and he's out of it now, and now he's a barber and using it to pay for school and all sorts of stuff. But again, he shouldn't have been allowed, as per the procedures and everything like that. But I don't think these registries are updated or kept up with. It's like
My point is, I reckon more people own guns than what people think in the UK. I think if it's that easy to get a shotgun, I think I'm going to encourage everyone to get one.
Yeah.
And go, hey guys, I used to think it was like impossible to get a gun. I thought you had to jump through all these hoops, and it was like a really big criminal checks, interviews. It's like, no, the police can't actually really stand in your way. And then we've got something called a firearms license, and that's a bit more trickier. So we've got like semi-automatic rifles here, like farmers have them.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Like farmers have them, and people that do it for competition. So I think we've been bullshit quite a lot in the UK to get the impression it's really hard to get a gun, to put people off even trying in the first place, when actually it's fucking easy to get one. Because when I talk to grannies, that's when I notice, like, a lot of grannies I know who are in their 70s and 80s all have shotguns. So it's the people in England you'd least suspect would be armed to the fucking teeth.
Yeah.
Grannies are like, oh, I got a shotgun and now my husband's not here.
Well, and because that's the thing, you know, I would always tell people, you know...
Alright, good for you, Granny.
In America, like, people don't realize, you know, you see the rates of, like, home invasions during the broad daylight in England and stuff, and it's like, because people have the mentality that if I go in there and I have, you know, a weapon, I'm pretty sure the other people don't. Now, like you're saying, there are these grannies that are armed to the teeth, and good for them, because you guys do have high rates of home invasions, but in America... people don't want to take that gamble, because if you want to, you know, try to break into some American's house, you might get shot for trying to do so. I mean, granted, I live within, you know, I have a cop in front of my house, a cop behind my house, cop next to my house. I'm surrounded by police, so I don't feel the need personally to own one, but it's still that illusion of this person might, so am I going to take that chance? And I think it's better for that than to know, you know, they like how they call the gun-free areas victim disarmament zones, where it's like it's easy picking in some of these spots. You know what bothered me? The other day I was at work, and you know how we were talking privately about how stereotypes kind of play out. There are these two girls that look just sort of like snooty little liberal whatevers, and, you know... the next thing you know, a group of guys walk by and they all have guns on their hips and holsters, and the one girl is just taken back. She's like, "Oh my God, who's walking around with guns like that? The guns!" Like, just terrified. And the other one at least had a few brain cells and was like, they're police. Their sweatshirts say K9 unit. Now, and they were in sweats and, like, they were in training gear, basically. And she's like, but they aren't wearing uniform. Like, oh my God, what does K9 mean? When she said, what does K9 mean, I was about to lose my shit. Because I'm like, K9, dog, K9 unit. They're the cops that, like...
kids are going to beg for more security, because it's going to get so stupid that you're going to need people looking after you.
Yeah, when you have a woman, a grown woman, probably in her 30s, asking what K9 means, and when there are cops with a gun in front of her...
I was having with Chris. Literally, I've lived this life for a year.
I mean, I wanted to just start banging my head on the wall. I'm like, what am I trapped in that these people, like, are existing? And you could tell she was, like, well-off, middle class, very insulated, obviously lives in a bubble, because you have no idea what the fucking K9 unit is, and you think there's something wrong with cops being in their sweat gear. I mean, they were still in uniform. It's just not the dress shirt and all of that. Like, they're in their training gear. But yeah, they still carry it, still holstered on their sides. Like, they're walking around in groups together. They were, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I was so taken back by it. Where it's just like, this is the problem. It's these isolated liberals who, you know, just don't see a need for anyone to have guns because they live in protected little bubbles.
Well, I mean, the only thing I want to add to that is I tried to make friends thinking it would help my mental stability, and basically hanging around with people and lowering my standards to where you just cannot have a conversation with them. I think that's what triggered off my mental breakdown. I honestly think it was what triggered it, was just dealing with absolute stupidness every single day. And not even being able to talk common sense into them. Like, you could spend weeks and weeks trying to slowly get it into them, and then, yeah. What about Hitler? What about him?
He
That was a good segue.
lived out his days in South America and died an old man.
Hunting Hitler. You reckon that happened then? How much of it did you watch of Hunting Hitler? Did you watch any of them?
I think I watched part of whatever the most recent episode was, the
Yeah.
8th episode or something, and I've seen the first couple episodes of the first season.
Yeah, it's the greatest TV program I've ever seen in my life. Ted Kennedy's the boss. Yeah, I'm absolutely I mean, this is groundbreaking. So Hunting Hitler, in a nutshell, they've done 3 seasons over 3 years. And what they've done is they've got all the secret files that the FBI had, the CIA had, and, you know, British intelligence, European intelligence, where they're all talking to each other. And now they put this into basically a massive supercomputer, so they've got access to their own unique database. So they can search for keywords, algorithms, and find stuff. And then what they do is they start off at Hitler's bunker up in Berlin, I think it was, and they start going through the database in the Berlin area, and they find, they used to think there were 4 tunnels on the way out, and then they found that there was really, it wasn't just obvious, it was blatantly obvious that there was a 5th tunnel, and that 5th tunnel led to a runway. And then from there they found that there were rat runs that the Nazis could take, either through Italy, which would get them into the Vatican, and the Vatican would use the Red Cross to give them new identities. Some of them went off to Norway and Denmark because they weren't really being invaded. And what they did is, it looks like they were able to take planes over to like Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay because it wasn't such a long flight, because they had U-boats, and the U-boats could refill them as they went off to Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in here, like a lot of the origins were based on these U-boats. If he did get out there, these U-boats, well, where the Allies bombed in certain parts of Chilean places and like the German areas, they're finding these U-boats that are sunk. And then they start talking to people that actually helped get these Nazis out, and they end up finding the Dr. Death, was it Mengele?
Yeah.
That he got married in Chile with his real name, and he was running the Fourth Reich. They have all these military bases around Argentina and Chile and Uruguay, like actual military bases. But now when you go there, they're being used for tourist resorts. But it looks like the Nazis left in the last 10 years, like when they died. And each time they go to these areas, they just start whacking what locals tell them about what they saw and what the German sort of networks that were there and how open they were. And it looked like they were trying to build the Fourth Reich. And a lot of people did see Hitler. A lot of people were doctors for Hitler. And it looks like Tim Kennedy found one of his houses at the end. And I'm pretty convinced that was his house in this jungle on top of this waterfall. And you look at how big these compounds are and how, like, even by what you see in Iraq with ISIS, they're better military compounds than what they're coming up with. And this was back in like the 40s. And you think of all this preparation that must have been done. That must have been planned ahead.
Yeah.
The only way they're going to build these kind of military complexes are for the top brass of the Nazis. It's not just for anyone. And you look, and what they did is they thought the best way to track down Hitler was to follow his henchmen, the people that were closest to him. Like, that's the same way they tracked Bin Laden, like track his network. And what they did is they found like all the top names you've heard of, like you know, like Mengele being one of them, and I think there was Simmer and all these people. Was they did get out, And Joseph Stalin was always convinced that they'd got out. And you look at all these FBI documents, it seems like the FBI wanted to go ahead to go and arrest him. And that got shut down. But it looked like the FBI were absolutely convinced that they knew exactly where this guy was.
Yeah. I think it's funny, in the Wikipedia for it, under reception, it says, the show has been slandered by Variety magazine for, quote-unquote, capitalizing on American public fascination with Hitler to produce a show based on a theory while providing no evidence to substantiate the theory. And it's like, you don't...
They did find a lot of evidence.
Yeah.
Not bombshell evidence, like U-boats that have been sunk. They found Nazi planes. They found Nazi military bases that were abandoned and gone. And they are Nazi. They've got massive communication networks in there. They've got like thousands of people living there, thousands. And if you look at where there were takeovers, I think it was don't quote me, I think it was Pinochet used these people as his secret police when he took over. So like he was like really okay with Nazis. So they were working with the government. It wasn't as if they were hiding. Mengele used his real name and his marriage. They've got the marriage records. They've got it. And he was running this compound, and the FBI have got the documents, and it's just crazy that I just don't understand how they kept us quiet for so long. And we all know that this is true. They did the tests because the History Channel did tests on Hitler's skull back in 2009 for the show. And it turns out that skull was the female.
Yeah.
Like that skull they've got as evidence cannot be Hitler. And this stuff they said they didn't get evidence. They found a fifth bunker, which no one had heard of before. They found U-boats where they heard that Nazis were being dropped off. They found the military compounds. They're still there. They found concentration camps. There are 760 concentration camps in the Chile area. 760 concentration camps. And it's because these countries were using the Nazis as their own secret police. It wasn't that they were using the same tactics that you see in these American countries. No, they were using them. And it's just absolutely incredible. And you think about it, what gets me thinking more is, did everybody know this? And the reason Tim Kennedy's walking around Hitler's house and around these compounds showing you it is because they're long gone.
Yeah.
And if they're long gone, where are they? Did they just die, or have they actually got into America? Because if America took in Project Bluebeam, you had Operation Paperclip, you had NASA, we're all like up to 30,000 Nazis per project were heading over to America to these projects under new identities. So would they not be interested in their friends and colleagues that are just, across the pond?
Yeah. Well, and plus, if they're all in these intelligence agencies and everything like that, they could always, be the ones to kind of...
They must have known that they were there.
Yeah, and they could always be the ones to kind of shut down any further investigations and stuff like that. I mean, I just think it's funny, like you were saying, the idea that, or like I was saying, the idea that Variety says there's no evidence, and it's like every episode I have the little summaries up, and it's like, oh, we found a base, we found some artifacts, we found this. Like, what? I wonder what their idea of evidence would have to be.
Yeah, and all the witnesses' statements add up. Like, they take the witness statements and they kind of add up when they check what they're saying through the CIA files and actually go to the destinations that they're talking about. They didn't get any bad leads by the looks of it over the whole 4 years. Every lead was a lead. But imagine how it feels. I hate to play the identity politics, but imagine how it feels as coming from a Jewish family when you find out that the evilest guy has been rammed down your throat all this time, Hitler and the Jews, and he was alive the whole fucking time.
Yeah.
And Mengele was alive the whole fucking time. And everyone must have known it.
Well,
everyone does know it in Chile. And it's not like, okay, I get people in America. Everyone in Argentina, Chile, and Uruguay. It's not like a secret. It's like, yep, they were here. Yep, they ran the place. Yep, they had their own compounds, and they was trying to build the Fourth Reich, and they were trying to use heavy water to produce a nuclear weapon.
Little towns where everyone speaks German and stuff like that. Yeah.
With Nazi flags, Nazi schools. And you start thinking back to World War II, where the British supported Hitler in the first place.
Yeah.
They built him up. They let him take on the commies, and then double-crossed him. And what did Hitler ideally want? A European Union.
Yeah. Well, it's like,
you
know, it's the idea history is written by the winners, and sometimes maybe you can have more power if you convince people you're not even around to be in power anymore. Like, I forget who it was that I was listening to at one point. It might have been Jordan Maxwell, where he was saying, you got to look at it like the mafia, where it's like, if one mafia boss is overthrowing another mafia boss, they don't kill each other like they show in the movies. They go to them and they just say, listen, man, you got to take your money, you got to get out of here, this, and that. And it's like a mob retirement package where you just get flown off to some South American island with your millions and you get to live out your days on a little ranch and have people working for you and maids and everything like that, but you just sort of leave the public eye. And it's like,
can I be insulting to America?
Sure.
And let's be insulting to America for a bit. Let's pick on them. Okay, all this great technology, whether you like it or not, came out of Nazis. They were way ahead of their game. And when World War II finishes, suddenly America are the leading force in all this technology. Whether it's aircraft, whether it's surveillance, whether it's what's it called, like mental warfare, info wars, propaganda. America are the leading force of programming minds, and the MK Ultra idea. Did they just come up with that by themselves, or if they just literally just employed all these fucking Nazis, and Nazis are just running the show?
Yeah, no, I think it's just a continuation.
Way more advanced.
Yeah, it was just a continuation. It just got moved from over there to over here.
Well,
and then you had the Bushes. You had the Bushes tied into the back of it. I mean, people don't realize the Bush family, their name is on the CIA building. It's practically a family business more than it's a government agency.
They were doing Bush's grandpa was one of the personal bankers to Hitler. So not to the Nazi parties, but to Hitler.
I've always said if I had a lot of money to invest in things and I put my morals aside, all the companies I would invest in would be the ones that were invested in the Nazis. It would be, Rockefeller Oil, Ford, Coca-Cola, Disney.
Yeah, there's loads of them. IBM.
I mean, Disney even is saying they're going to open up a Netflix service of their own because now they own Star Wars, Marvel, and all these other franchises. They could open up their own Netflix streaming service.
Well, you've got to remember, Janka, who is the head of the EU here, he has close ties the same as Bush. Very similar.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that. He's basically very similar to George Soros in many ways. Like, he negotiated with Nazis and got a lot of payoffs for working with them. And you got George Soros running around America, who we know has got Nazi connections, because he sold out the Jews. And that's not me saying that, like, he admits that on TV, that's what he did. And he doesn't have any problem doing it, because it's the free market, isn't it? You just think the links are there if you just look. I mean, there's just Nazism all over the place. George Soros. Who was it, the guy that you said?
Huh?
Who was the guy that you said that was? Oh, the Bushes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You can kind of throw Bill Gates in there because of the Eugenics Society.
Yeah, and I think his dad worked for IBM. His dad worked for IBM too, I'm pretty sure. So even he's one of these people that's kind of tied in there in a shady way.
Or do I just smoke too much weed?
No, you're definitely on point. I mean, I've thought that for a while, that America in the 60s was essentially the beginning of the Fourth Reich, where it's like, and people just didn't realize, because it's all, people didn't realize in Nazi Germany, before pre-concentration camps and all that, it was all gay rights and, everything like that. Like, that's one of the things people don't realize. I'd written an article about it where you had these like gay orgies going on, and the whole book, what is it, the Pink Swastika or whatever, where we're told the Nazis were anti-gay, but they weren't. There were whole sections of the Nazi army that were all gay, and they thought gay sex was like a celebration of masculinity. It was the feminine gays that were being persecuted, and it wasn't as cut and dry as history wants to tell us, and it wasn't as much identity politics as people want to tell us. It was socialism, and it was who objected to socialism.
What I think could have happened, I mean, I'm not going to make it sound like a bit like a cartoon, but I think the Nazis knew they were going to lose the military war, and what you saw in America at the time was stuff like Sigmund Freud's Bernays was hanging around at the time. And I think what could have simply happened is Bernays came up with the century of the self in many ways. And what he probably did is he went to the Nazis going, look, now you've lost, you're still going to get your European Union, the British, I mean, you were going to deal with the British anyway. What you've got to learn is if you want to dominate people, you can't use the tanks, you've got to get rid of the Nazi symbol, you've got to get rid of the uniforms, you've got to get rid of the concentration camps and stop being so brutal. And like Alex Jones said, wear the pastel colours, look friendly, and look like you're everybody's friend and you're there to help. And slowly do it this time.
Well, you know...
And then people will consent to it. And that's what we see in Florida. People are going to consent to the police state within the school. People are going to consent to these gun...
or even, you know, when I was watching that feminist debate with my friend, I made the point to him, and I don't know if he had ever thought of this, where I said, you know, I said, the idea that the people in power were keeping women out of the workplace, I said, are we really supposed to think that the government and the people in power were opposed to doubling their income? Because that's what it did for them. When women went into the workplace, well, now you're taxing the other 50% of the population. Yeah. So their income doubled overnight. It's not that they didn't want women in the workforce. They wanted it. That's why the CIA was funding Gloria Steinem and Miss Magazine. Is women didn't want to be in the workforce, and they had to slowly be convinced that that's what was best for them and that they should want to do it. And
quite now I could be talking shit. A lot of women didn't want the vote, and the reason they didn't want the vote was because they realised they weren't working, so therefore if the men are working, it'd be a conflict of interest for non-taxpayers to decide what the taxpayer money does.
Yeah.
It will reduce the welfare state. But the women were intelligent enough to kind of like, okay, it's sexist, we can't vote. It kind of makes sense, because as a whole we don't really pay towards it, and if we start demanding money from the welfare...
Well, but it's also the idea, though, if you have a strong relationship with your husband, you realize that your husband's vote is your family vote. Exactly. It's not him and you're independent from each other, but live to get this weird... So, like, I mean...
But I think women, there are more concerns from women about, hey, perhaps the vote isn't such a great idea in hindsight. Then
the whole problem is that we're taught everything in this, you know, looking through it from a lens of nowadays, and it's like that's the concerns of back then are not the way we're taught to look at it now. Where, like I said, women had no problem being like, all right, this isn't my husband's vote and I'm denied a vote. This is our family's vote and he's voting on behalf of our family. Like, it wasn't... Yeah, there's been a lot of propaganda to...
Whoa! So a number of U-boats took certain Nazis and Nazis looped to Argentina, where the Nazis were supported by future President Joan Moran, who, with his wife Evita. So Evita's that silly Madonna film, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
No. Jimmy, you couldn't make that up, could you? And who would you want to get to play that? Madonna, right?
Right. Yeah. Truth is stranger than fiction.
Maybe Madonna knows.
Probably. I thought it was funny, you had a couple years ago her doing a stage show where she had Nazi flags behind her and stuff, and she...
Lady Gaga?
No, it was Madonna, and Madonna got in trouble for it and everything like that, and it's like, you are so old and have to try so hard to be edgy or whatever, and it's just, it's not working, Grandma. Like,
the edgiest thing she could do is die.
Yeah, right? That's probably the best career move she could do right now. But yeah, I definitely...
I'm absolutely convinced that we're dealing with a Fourth Reich, and it's through consent, engineered consent, rather than getting in people's face, scaring them.
Yeah, it is.
Just hand over kids, hand them over.
I definitely, I've thought that for a while now. That it's just done in a very subversive, kind of behind-the-scenes manner. I mean, the family courts, there's so much family courts and social engineering and, you know, everything like that. And the other thing, too, is, like, you know, now we have it in the 80s. The idea of a socialist running for president would have been a joke, but we had Bernie Sanders run. Right. And I mean, I look at it, you know, Henry Mancow on his site, granted, he does a lot of, you know, stuff against Jews and the Jewish question and stuff, but a lot of his articles related to communism and how he goes into how feminism is actually rooted in communism, how gay rights is actually rooted into communism, and how all of it's based in sort of communism. Lenin said socialism is communism. So I mean, that's one of these things where like.
That's Jordan Peterson said. It's the same philosophy of feminism. Yeah, the actions aren't the same, but the philosophy is, the identity is more important than the individual.
Yeah.
And once you've got that, that's the motto Hitler used, that the group think is more important than the individual. And once you get people doing that, you've gone.
Yeah. And it's, you see that in all of this sort of and the other thing,
dehumanize the people that don't agree with your group think. You can dehumanize them. Once you dehumanize, like Chris does to me, you're a racist, so therefore it's okay to violently attack me.
Yeah, and but what was the other thing I was going? You know, and the other thing is, if you look at all of these groups, they don't focus on like equal opportunity. They always focus on equal outcome. And like I was saying to my friend yesterday, I said, you know, you've never heard a woman say, we need more women represented in arborist or trash pickup or working on oil rigs or off-road truckers. I said, any of the hard, dirty, well-paying jobs that men do, you'd never see a woman crying about wanting more women in that workplace. They're very selective about where they want their representation. And it's like, that's
once you get that mentality, you've broken down the future generation, because by biology, men are disposable, unfortunately, and women aren't disposable.
Yeah.
Because men have millions of sperm, women have one useful egg every 9 months, every like couple of years.
Yeah, and they don't realize that this quest for equality, all it is asking for women to be disposable as well. Like, that's what the women are fighting for. They're fighting to be disposable. If you go along with this feminist whatever nonsense nowadays, like,
I use this excuse. That's why I've not got a proper career, because I was convinced we wouldn't even make it to 2018, to be honest with you, until we start to see some giant problems.
Well, and the other thing,
I can't see. I mean, I know I've got a sinful hat, but I can't see the point in getting a career and getting a job when I'm absolutely convinced civilization is going to collapse in 2020. Like, I'm absolutely convinced.
I mean, it's, you know, one of the things I think about with all this is, you know, in order to enact communism, you have to have a complete breakdown of the family. Now, to tie it into what you were saying about, are we living in the Fourth Reich, you know, kindergarten was a Prussian education system where it was meant for taking the children away from the parents at early developmental bonding stages, so they would instead form a bond to the state, that they would be willing to die for the state and essentially see the state as their family instead of bonding with the mother. Well, if you get the mother in the workplace and, you know, everything like that, like, it's all the groundwork for communism is all here. Like,
I'm going to say bad to women. The reason I'm struggling to date women is I do the same judgment. I know I shouldn't do this. I look at them and I make a snap judgment of, if we had kids, would I be 100% cool with this woman looking after my child? And as soon as I go, fuck no, I just don't date them. And now and then I'll find women I'll be like, fuck, she'd be such a great mum. But they're just completely out of my league.
Yeah.
Just miles out of my league. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't know if you do that subconsciously, but you just,
yeah.
I just look at them and just think, I just wouldn't I would not feel comfortable with you bringing up my child. I think you wouldn't give it enough attention, you wouldn't give them enough affection. Yeah. I know how much affection I needed as a baby and a child. I just don't think you've got it in you.
Yeah.
And I haven't got it in me because I'm a guy. Like, I'm trying to find a good woman who's good at that kind of stuff.
Well, anyway, I think we should wrap this up, because the connection the past 15 minutes, it's gotten all crackly again. It was good for the whole rest of the time I've been recording and stuff, though.
Yeah, it was pretty good, man.
Yeah. So, all right, we'll try to figure something out to cover next week and stuff, and do it again. Yeah, if the world doesn't blow up. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, I'll start getting this together and uploading it.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
I enjoyed it.
All right.
Bye.
Take care, man.
Bye.
All right. Bye.